Are we live?
I think so. We're live. Here we are. Hey,
Awesome.
Internet. Hey, world. I'm Hippie.
Good. I'm November.
And
And, and
here
this
we are,
this
live.
is the Hippie in November show.
Yes, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Um, November, what branch did you serve in?
Awesome. I was in the Army Signal Corps for 8 years. And
Awesome.
you?
I was in the Army. I was in the Reserves and the National Guard, and I was in for 14 years.
Man,
Yeah.
man, quite a
I did a
stretch.
lot of contracting in between those, so I spiced up my experience.
How does that work? So you had breaks in service?
I had 1 year that was a break-in service, but the rest I was able to drill overseas. So I worked in Afghanistan as a contractor for over 2 years, but I would drill
Mm,
in the clinics and do all my CEU time because I was a
very
medic.
nice.
So it was like they always needed hands.
Not too bad. That's a pretty good gig. Good good way to work it. Oh my God.
Yeah, I learned how to work the system. I got to go around a lot of places.
Fun times. So I think
Mm,
we're supposed to be talking about women and possibly even the fun things that we saw women in service doing and some of the amazing things and some of the hilarious to look back at things.
yeah, as women, of
Yes.
course, because we're giving you that female perspective.
Yes. So we were talking backstage a little bit, and Hippie, you had your son after you got out of the military, right?
Yeah, I found out I was pregnant with him. I think like a month after I had gotten discharged.
Oh man.
A very interesting surprise. When did you have your first?
So mine was one of the horror stories. My husband and I had actually eloped and not told anybody in our families that we were married. We were still boyfriend and girlfriend. And we were gearing up to go on a deployment together and went home and introduced each other as boyfriend and girlfriend for the first time. Um, Geared up for deployment and signed up for Advon party. And poof, found out I was 2 months pregnant. So that was my first intro. I cried a lot.
I could imagine.
Yes. I completely spaced that day that I had even, my husband and I were sharing the same vehicle, dual military. And I spaced that I had the only vehicle that day. So I called him freaking out and was like, "You have to come get me." So he sprinted from the motor pool over to the clinic to find that I had wandered back over to the company area. It was a pretty fun and entertaining day. But yeah, yeah, made the day very very interesting, to
So
say the least.
total, how many pregnancies did you have throughout your military career?
So I had two children, both while in service in dual military,
Wow.
um, and very large, the very different experiences too. So the first one he was um, deployed for, obviously. I had signed up to go on Advon with him, and then found out that I was not going. Um, so that was a fun story. His mom was excited we didn't cohabitate before marriage, if that tells you how those conversations went. But there were some pretty fun conversations rolling out. Hey, we're married. Hey, we're pregnant. Um, but he deployed. He was gone for the entire pregnancy, and he came back right at the tail end. And they actually induced me so that he could see our son before he redeployed. Um,
Oh,
and then the second one he was here for, and very different experience. We had relocated to Georgia, and I remember one time it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we couldn't sleep because we were both hungry. And he's like, "Well, I didn't do pregnancy cravings the first time, so if we're hungry, what do you want?" And I was just like, "I don't know, food." Um, but it was pretty neat to experience some different ways. And um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Very interesting times to be dual military and to have little ones in service. Are you so? Did you interact with a lot of people that were pregnant while you were in service?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, I was a medic. I was a medic. So, like, when we had female soldiers in the unit that were pregnant, like, we had to be monitoring them and, like, have them in the back of our minds. And I feel like I always, of course, gravitated towards, like, well, if there's a pregnant woman in this unit, like, she's our princess. Like, in my head, I'm like, well, what can we do for her? I actually have a really weird pregnant story. It was one of the most memorable experience of my life.
Mm-hmm.
There was a soldier. We were at AIT. We were at AT for our 2 weeks out of the year with the Minnesota National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a girl and she looked pregnant. She had like a basketball on her stomach, like that pregnant. And I saw her, like, she was in the shower room. And so, like, I saw her and I was like, oh, how far along are you? And she was like, what do you mean? In my face. Like, I just went, like, as pale as possible. And my friend was walking through and she grabbed me. She's like, oh, no, Laura, not her. That's not the one. And then she drugged me out. Like, I grabbed all my shit and I went running. And I was so thankful for her because I was so embarrassed. I had never done that. I would never call out a pregnant person unless I'm sure. But being in the military, like, I had just seen her butt ass naked. Like, unless she's pregnant, she had a tumor on her belly.
You
Turns
gotta
out
love.
she was in extreme denial, and I like had to like pull her off duty. And I switched rooms. I went to a completely different room because I was like in a bed right next to hers. Like, I was like, I was mortified, but come to find out I was right. But I could also understand just the stress that she was feeling as a new soldier, a new mom, maybe in an experience that like she wasn't ready for, and also may have just been in extreme denial, like thinking that she was going to get kicked out of the military. Who knows what was going through her head?
Oh yeah.
Like, there's no way she didn't know. So that also pisses me off. But I have to think of like, what was her experience like? What was she so afraid of to not say anything to us?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
can't imagine, but I mean, good on your buddy, by the way, for the save and fast recovery,
Right?
because not all of us are so fortunate when we step into that bundle of
No.
fun.
Better yet to have someone so clever so quickly. Like, her brain was like right on top of it. I was so embarrassed.
I would have been still stammering like, but but the stomach.
Yeah. And I
It
was
would not have
thinking in my
ended
head,
well.
like, I'm a medical person. Like, I have to know who's pregnant here. And I'm like that girl, I couldn't let it settle. Like, I freaked out for a minute, but after a while I was like, no way. I was like, get that girl a pregnancy test.
You're like, no, no,
I was
that's
like, yeah,
confirmed pregnancy there.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
you gotta love it, and you have to like. There are some horror stories and things that probably go through people's minds. Like, um, I can remember several fun instances. Like Washington, the year I was pregnant with my son, I had like the coldest winter ever, and we were both supposed to deploy, so we had packed up all our things into a storage unit, and I didn't have any idea where my Gore-Tex was. And it was right when the bear suit tops, the black fleeces in the army were phasing out,
Mm-hmm.
but they were still authorized, and so I couldn't find my Gore-Tex to save my life. So I started trying to. I asked my first sergeant, my commander, I'm like, "Hey, can I rock the bear suit top in formation? I know you guys are saying Gore-Tex, but I really don't know where mine is." And my commander was like, "Yeah, you're good." And my first sergeant was just not having it. And they were both females. It was like so crazy to see the difference. And she was just like, "No, you're not wearing it." So I had to wait till next payday to go and buy a Gore-Tex. But meanwhile, I'm out there just rocking ACUs, maternity ACUs. Like, it's cold. It's okay. We'll go run around and play outside. And it was like total opposite from the second time I was pregnant. I remember just walking around and being overheated and getting yelled at by my first sergeant for not having a jacket on. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm good, I promise. It was Georgia too, by the way. So it's not like there was some extreme risk of cold at that point, but um, it was really interesting to see the variances, and those are like the easy stories, but a lot of fun situations that you deal with, and um, different individuals and different guidance you're given at all different points that just has you going like, can we just pick a road and stick on it? Because like this isn't going to change. I'm going to stay pregnant until this baby comes out. So if we could just all come up with a game plan for how I'm going to work for the next
Like
10 months, that'd be great.
pregnancy is such a very individualized experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody's pregnancies are the same. Nobody's two pregnancies are the same. You don't know if you're going to be too hot or too cold. You don't know what kind of cravings you're going to be having and needing to fulfill because your baby is wanting whatever specific thing. Like my kid wanted popsicles all the time. I couldn't have imagined not being told I couldn't have popsicles like 24/7. But had I been active or working all the time, like I wouldn't have had my freezer right around the corner from me the whole time. Like just silly things. Like I I give it up to. I feel like pregnant women go through some of the most extreme experiences with such like it's like a thankless job. Like they're out there being badasses while they're pregnant. Like
Yeah.
I saw women taking pregnancy tests up until like we had to force them to stop, like just stop. Or not pregnancy tests, but PT tests while they were pregnant. And you're like, no, girls, like calm down. You don't have to. And she's like, oh no, I like doing it. And seeing the kind of strength in so many different facets of pregnant women is really
Oh, yeah.
cool. Like I was never going to do that when I was pregnant. If I had been pregnant on active duty, no, I'd have been, I'd have been a little princess.
I tell you what, it was interesting. I tried not to make waves um, as much as possible. I ended up taking a PT test while pregnant. I actually got an anthrax vaccination. Um, and the pre deployment checklist, because I went in and I was like, I picked up my 6 month supply of birth control the day that I found out I was pregnant. And I tried to take it back, and they were like, we can't take it back once it's been issued. And I'm like, well, it didn't fucking work. Like, I'm not going to need it for the next 6 months. And like, just the different things that you go through. I know I took a PT test and a lot of different things, but for me, actually, after the pregnancy was a lot worse.
Yeah.
Um, like a lot of people talk about different things that their body go through, and it is very much like you know what it's like, the ins and outs and what your body does on some mornings. I couldn't think about red sauce without getting acid reflux, and I'd never had acid reflux before, but literally
Just a thought. Yeah.
thinking about pizza, my body would be like, okay, we'll throw down.
Yeah.
um
You're such a complete everything changes like so much changes afterwards and not for the worse. Like I feel a lot stronger now that I've actually had a baby. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but the process afterwards to get to the point where I feel stronger now, like it broke me. It broke me afterwards.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And I mean, you just look back and you're like, I don't know what I did with my time or how I functioned, but I mean, especially having to still, like moms in the military, having to still make it work, and dads in the military, um, finding ways to just still function and push through. And um, I think, I don't know if I told this story last time, so I'm sorry, but like, I remember one time my son got so sick in the middle of the night, and he walked the entire length of the downstairs of the house, coming to mommy and daddy's room in the middle of the night getting sick. And so we had kid erupting and feeling terrible, and we had like carpets that had to be cleaned immediately. So there we are at 2 o'clock in the morning. Our baby was asleep, and the toddler was broken. And we're fixing him up, and we're carpet cleaning, and we're washing things and changing sheets. And the next morning it was like we still had to get up and go in and drag him out of bed to carry in as well. Like if there's no like free pass, like no, the kid's really really sick. It's like no, you're gonna bring him in and show some proof of life and go through the motions. So what you have to muster and still do um, is amazing. I remember being pregnant with my daughter, and my husband had to take me into the ER for a migraine. And I'd never had a migraine before, but like I was actually getting sick to my stomach.
Mhm.
And he had to stay in the hospital with me until 1:30 in the morning. And um, he was driving to the range. He was helping run the range the next day. So he didn't even tell his work about it. He just went into work and did it and killed it. And I was just like, I'm trying to function. So, you know, I tried to hold things down while he was away, but, you know, parents in the military period, I don't know how they do it.
I think that one of the biggest motivations while I was in was always seeing what parents had to juggle before they ever got to work. Like I worked in the office that does like the med boards for the state of Washington for that it's a National Guard, and most of the I mean um, half the office is women and their moms, and before they get to work they've already like done yoga, cooked a full breakfast, taken their kids to childcare, and then once they're after work, I knew people that were going to school and transferring their kids to a different daycare so they could go and finish their education. And I was just like, I have no excuse. I can't like, I can't make up any excuses for any lame thing I do at work, because I'm like, I see what parents are going through. And that was before I ever had a kid. And I was just like in awe. I was in awe of the amount of how amazing people work with such little sleep. And now that I'm a parent, I'm like they were even stronger than I could have ever imagined.
I mean, you learn to get over it because I was, so after I had my son, I just become an E5. I had my own section of like 15 and um, soldiers straight from AIT from the same class. So it was like an extension of AIT for them. It was a bundle of fun. And I got really sick, but I was also taking courses full time online. Um, and I kind of feel like I was an idiot for doing all that. Because I was really just burning myself out on all ends. So I kind of felt like I had something to prove since I didn't go on the deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I better have gotten something taken care of while I was sitting back in the rear, even though our rear detachment was actually extremely busy. We had to relocate the entire battalion um, over to the other side of the installation. Um, and we actually kept up a pretty decent training schedule while they were gone as well when we weren't relocating the unit entirely. But I mean, there's like this need to keep going and moving until you burn yourself out entirely, which also is kind of a thing that we have to pay attention to and not get burnt out on, because the lack of sleep eventually catches up to you. And now, like, people laugh that I was ever in the military, that I could wake up to like a phone vibrating across the room at 2 o'clock in the morning, because right now I'm not getting up before 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. It's not happening. Ever. Never. Not for nothing. I think my daughter tried to wake me up at 6 today, and I was like, but we have another hour, so go back to bed for that. And she did not go back to bed, but I did.
Yeah, so I'm
Young
reading
adore.
some comments over here on to the right side really quick. And
Okay.
there's conversation about pregnant people being deployed. And I want to hit on that really quick. And it's going to get really personal and a little sad, but such is life. Because I didn't even think about this before we were going to talk. But, well, women do get pregnant while they're deployed often, and they get redeployed back home. Um, and lots of women suffer miscarriages or ectopic pregnancies. Um, and then they're dealing with that not just during combat, but throughout the time that they're in the military. Like I've almost had my ovaries alone enough removed multiple times from stupid things my body was doing. Like the amount of issues that we end up having, but we deal with, and no one ever knows ever, is outrageous. So there are sometimes, actually, there's not sometimes, there will always be pregnant people on deployments. It happens. Every unit's going to get someone. It happens. We're humans, and all the parts are there. So
You know, it'd be nice if our parts like just magically didn't make children when we didn't want to, but unfortunately, they keep functioning whether we want to or not. And just like boys, we're adults, and you know we're gonna continue to do adult-like things, especially if we can find a way in the military. You know, I met my husband in the military, and we didn't plan on kids, but they definitely happened. I love using my son as a tale of birth control is not 100%.
yeah,
It's a great talk for all the teenage nieces that I have now. They super love that story. My son hasn't gotten old enough to throw things at my head for telling it yet, but um, I'm sure it's coming. But I mean, it's just a reality. Like females can get the job done just as well, but unfortunately, our bodies also have this facet that helps out society a decent bit for the most part. But we also
yeah,
can't just flip the switch, and birth control doesn't always work, especially during stressful times. Things in your body can change, and it's just a mess. But I mean, I was still able to do so much while pregnant. Both times, I think I actually learned how to become rear D finance, which was not my job at all, um, and process pay actions and leave for a battalion worth of individuals. And I had to figure out how to do that in like 4 weeks. And when I went out on maternity leave, my NCO, who had gotten into the same section, I think 2 weeks after I did, I still had to, we had both been there for months, you know, working, at least me, until 8 or 9 o'clock at night to get caught up and try and process some actions or pay requests or whatever else. And I still had to teach him our job so that I could go out on maternity leave, because after that many months, he had no idea how to do it. And it wasn't like I was trained some special kind of way. We both were thrown into the mix. Um, it was an absolute mess. When I came back off maternity leave, I had made my E5 and I was actually put in charge of him. So that was fun. But you know, it's a pain in the ass when I've thrown up. Excuse me. Sorry for the gross details, everybody. 6 times before 6 a.m. with literally nothing in my stomach, and I'm just
okay.
trying to take half of a pill that they told me to take from the sick call, and people are like, "Well, go home, but first teach him how to do his job." And it's like, are you kidding me?
Like this
And
nausea does not stop on a dime. That's not
I
how it works.
know. I mean, it didn't hit very often, thankfully, but like that one particular day, I remember just getting ready for work, and I got sick in the shower. I couldn't even go to right beside the shower to the bathroom, and it was just brutal that day. And they're like, "Oh, well, you know, you can go out for your sick call now, but first you have to teach him how to do his job." And it's like, I mean, he's been here for 3 months already, and if he hasn't figured it out, I'm pretty sure the 30-minute briefing while trying to hold back my gags is not going to improve him.
Yeah.
But
Also, the whole point of going to urgent sick call is that it's like urgent.
yeah,
So if someone's telling you, but this is a thing that women, no matter what, are going to have to face when they're going through this. Someone's still going to tell them, just tough it up, go through it. But for 20 minutes of educating someone that just,
it's fun times.
when you could get to the doctor real quick and get some, I don't know, Phenergan or no, I guess Zofran, right?
I think at the time it was the Phenegrin, and they were just trying to get me to take half of one of their little chewable tablets, and my body was just like, not today,
Mm-mm.
we're good.
No.
Um, but yeah, just trying to navigate that while you're sick, and doing all that. I remember one woman, her and her husband were active duty, and her husband actually didn't even drive. They had 3 kids already, and she was active duty, and I was just like, you mean
And
if
he
you
didn't
go and
drive?
they lived on post and he did not have a driver's license. So I was like, you mean to tell me if you go into labor, you have to drive yourself there? I will punch a kitten in the face. I swear to God. Like, somebody better drive me to the hospital. I like to think I wasn't super needy at first when I started to have my son, but man, by the end, I wasn't a good person. I really wasn't.
Hey, look, I don't care what anyone says about women and whether having emotions or whatever. You're literally carrying a human being inside of your body. You're bringing life into the world. Sorry, but pregnant women's needs come first in
Oh, yeah.
every room I will ever be in. Always. My mother raised me right. Like, pr- pregnant women are badasses and they're dealing with a lot.
Oh, God.
So it's like you're forgiven for all your grumpiness
I,
during pregnancy.
the people at the hospital definitely. So the first time was at Madigan, and they don't have AC in most of the buildings in Washington State. So I'm like stupid hot, and apparently they had one fan on the maternity floor.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's like barely any AC throughout. That's so
oh yeah,
horrible
so
state to be hot in.
I was like irrationally asking for this fan, and this woman showed up. The nurse showed up with the fan after like an hour of active pushing labor, and she's like, "I got the fan," and I just kind of looked at her like, "Do you want an award right now?" Um, I'm I'm not particularly in a mood for all this, but like the second time I walked into the hospital, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to make a deposit," and the lady at the counter was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "I'm in labor," and she's like, "Oh yeah, sure you are. We'll take you back in a minute and check how far along you are to see if you're gonna stay, honey." She was like, "What kind of attitude is this?" But the first one was like terrible. The second one was a cakewalk. And my husband, I actually asked for the medication pretty early on in the second one, and my husband was like, "Thank you." I was like, "Oh, I guess it was pretty bad for you. Sorry."
My water broke when I was taking photos of someone's fancy new apartment for their new listing. So my water broke in someone's apartment. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I was like, did I just pee myself? Like, what's happening? Then I was like, oh, my water broke. And then I realized I wasn't going into active labor. So I just called an Uber and went to my chiropractic appointment for the day and also had
Oh,
a massage and just chilled around. I didn't go into active labor. My body just was like, nope. So I didn't go to the hospital for like a whole nother day. So I just stayed in like, I had back labor. So I was like, let's go to the chiropractor. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not missing that appointment because I ain't going back for a long time after this.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. With my second kid, it happened. It happened exactly the way the military would have been proud at how this went down, because it was very bohica, like very bohica. So it was the start of a 4-day weekend, and I wanted an icy, like something fierce, and I was like, "Can we go get an icy?" So my husband takes me to get an icy, and my
No,
son
I
was with my in laws, like in the off chance I went into labor, like, we'll send him over here just in case. And he goes in and he gets to a monster Java whatever, and he comes out, and I'm like, "Why are you gonna drink that crap at 9 o'clock at night?" He's like, "It doesn't affect me," and for the most part it didn't, but I just wanted to argue because I was pregnant. So
yeah.
um so we get back to the
You want
house. he
to
he drinks it, and on a Thursday night he drinks it, and he stays up till 4 o'clock in the morning installing a surround sound system. And super exciting. I got up at 7, and I didn't know what labor really felt like because they induced me with my son, so I didn't know what going into normal labor felt like. So at
Oh,
7 I was like, "Ooh, this isn't really cool. What's going on?" So I started timing it, and I was like, "Oh, well, according to what they say, this is happening pretty fast." So I jumped in the shower and I woke him up just enough. I had told him when he came to bed, I was like, how late did you stay up? And he goes, 4 a.m. And I was like, all right, I won't bug you till noon today. So in his mind, he was off the hook until noon. All right, this was the start of a 4-day weekend. In his mind, he checked out. Like literally, we've had fights about this, and I'm just like, I can't believe you did that. But so I come upstairs and I start timing it, and I'm like, I'm gonna jump in the shower. Hey, take this piece of paper and here's your phone and a pen. Write it down when I call out to you. Like, I think I'm having contractions and I got to time these. He said he barely stayed awake for like the first time I called out, right? So he times them or whatever. I get out, I go back downstairs, and I'm like, hey, you need to think about getting up because I think we're going into the hospital pretty quick. 30 minutes go by and I'm like directly beneath our room, and he's 6'2", so I can hear him when his feet hit the floor. So 30 minutes go by and this man's still sleeping. So of course I lose my shit at this point. I'm like, get the fuck. I hear the thunk. He gets up and we go into the hospital. That one went so much smoother, but in his mind we had agreed to a contract that was
So,
completely binding, and he did not have to get up before noon. So
of course.
that was a lot of fun. But no, I think there's so many things I saw people deal with at different levels. I had a female that came over from Germany. She left before she hit her third trimester. And in Germany, they had told her in the finance office that she was authorized BAH when she arrived at Fort Gordon. Um, and she was an E4. She wasn't married. So this was a pretty significant piece of information for her. Um, when she got to Fort Gordon, it's actually by policy the pregnancy BAH rate. Each post has its own policy on when in the pregnancy you're authorized BAH. So she got there, housing let her move in, got her pregnancy profile, everything, let her move in, didn't say a word. She didn't get BAH for another 2 months. So she was just living off of her ordinary paycheck and struggling. And I was pitching fits trying to get answers, and nobody ever came up with an answer. There was an amazing, cool lady in finance who wanted to. I think you had to be 6 months pregnant, and this woman was literally every time she went to the doctor would be like, "Oh, you're this many weeks along," and this woman was seriously trying to start a fight in finance over this female service member who hadn't gotten BAH, and well, that many weeks isn't 6 months yet. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? The policy doesn't say how many weeks. Like, how are you making rules in addition to? And it was just like miserable trying to get her onboarded on top of that to a new unit and get her just active doing her job in the military and trying to focus on that rather than fighting to just get
Housing
some
situation, finances.
yeah.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I can understand nothing before 3 months, but that should be like a national policy. But
Yeah,
anything after that, give them their own. Give them the BAH. Let them go start nesting. It's
exactly.
give them a space to feel safe, because more importantly, so many. I understand there's lots of people that haven't deployed that also get pregnant, but a lot of the people that have gotten pregnant after they've deployed that have PTSD, like being unhoused or not having a home while you are pregnant is extremely terrifying. It happened to me just because we were in the middle of a move and something happened and our housing fell through. And I was like homeless for a month while I was pregnant. Luckily, we had our van, but like not having a stable place while you're in the middle of nesting is traumatic.
It's
And I don't think the military definitely doesn't see that, but I don't think that we talk about so much of that experience as a person with PTSD being pregnant and going through that whole process, like having systems that make it that much harder and that much more traumatic for people like that is ridiculous. Because when you get pregnant and postpartum, your amygdala, I think it kind of swells a little bit or
mm-hmm.
gets overactive. But when you already have PTSD and you have nerves firing shit up into your amygdala all the time, it like super expands, like
Wow.
tenfold. It's not something that they ever pay attention. They like we're completely left out of so many PTSD research things when it comes to being pregnant and having PTSD, combat PTSD specifically. I mean, like as a medic, the only shit that I'm dealing with when I'm pregnant with my flashbacks are anything that I've seen medically, and everything I've seen medically is trauma.
Yeah.
So like my like little like shot of anxiety is like someone's face blown off.
Yeah. Kind of a
And
kind of a whole moment with
I
especially
saw
with
over on
someone
the
who doesn't
side,
understand.
yeah, totally, exactly, because like no one told me that, like they were like, oh, your symptoms might be a little bit more while you're pregnant, but no one walked me through the fact that my flashbacks were going to get heavier and more physical, and that after postpartum I was going to it was going to heighten as much as it did. I was
Wow.
not prepared for what was about to happen to me because I have really bad nerve damage down the right side of my body. No one told me. They were just like, "Oh, like if I had been in the military, that would have sucked." So I can
Yeah.
only imagine how difficult that is for long-term active duty women out there going through those experiences. I will say though, the VA care when it comes to being pregnant is the absolute best care you will ever get at the VA.
Really?
I I had a baby 2.5 years ago. I had a well, we lost a pregnancy. We I guess we've lost two. I had an ectopic, and then I had another one not too long ago. And all my care is at the VA, and they are so amazing. They get back to all your calls. They submit all your referrals. The care that everyone deserves is only given to pregnant women at the VA.
Well, that's
That
amazing.
that's my opinion from like having both different kinds. Like if they just did what they did for pregnant women, the VA would be doing a lot better.
But did they have like any insight? Especially, that's one thing I wanted to ask you, especially being seen at the VA as a combat veteran with PTSD. Did they have, they didn't have any insight into how that was going to impact you during pregnancy? Like people, everybody jokes about it that your hormones go crazy, but people don't understand how.
It's not just your hormones. Like
Right.
your nervous system is on fire. Like you're physically feeling like if you're having flashbacks, if you've ever experienced flashbacks for anyone else that's listening, like they just start rolling and rolling and rolling and they don't stop. They just keep going because your body, because like I said, postpartum and pregnancy and all that makes your amygdala grow. But when you already have issues with like an over heightened shot of adrenaline going into your amygdala all the time, like it's like this is like normal pregnancy, this is like PTSD pregnancy,
Wow.
and this is like PTSD, and this is like pregnancy postpartum PTSD. Like it expands. And I actually I try and talk with as many therapists that I work, not like personal therapists, but therapists that I work with that see other patients that come to me for either guidance about alternative therapies. I try to hit that them. I'm like, if you are talking to pregnant women or um, mothers that have PTSD, like this is a part that a lot of times we don't talk about or that people don't address or that's not researched. The VA did get me like a special, like they were hardcore about putting me in with a psychologist. They wanted me on meds, like bad,
Wow.
like bad. Like they kept trying to push all these different meds. It was like, okay, well, present your medication to me when I would go into the doctor. And my doctor was really nice. And I have nothing bad to say about her. She was really trying to care, but nobody explained to me what they were doing. They knew that I was going, they were so afraid that I wasn't going to connect with my child, that they had me scared that I wasn't going to connect with my own child even more than I was already afraid. Like, but they didn't explain to me why, but the care I needed isn't fully there. The
Yeah.
care we needed is fully there. They're trying. But they wanted to give me meds that would change the development of my son's lungs. And I had to make the choice. Like, am I going to take these mental health medications so that I can feel okay throughout the pregnancy? Or am I going to be meditating for the rest of my pregnancy? And you're damn, I'm lots of meditation, lots of yoga, lots of breath work. When my nausea got really bad, I did use cannabis. When I broke my wrist, I used CBD instead of opiates. Like, I kept all the bad things out of my body, but it was hard. But the VA only had the bad options. And like, I had these discussions with my psychologist over and over again, and they were just like, yeah, they're like, this is all we can give you. But what would have helped was a map. Like, if somebody had been like, hey, this is what's happening to your brain, this is what's happening to your body, and because you already have messed up nerves in your body, they're gonna go crazy. And then I wouldn't have been like, well, what's wrong with me? I'm going insane. Instead, I would have known, oh, there's a physical problem with me. It changes everything. Like, once that clicked in my head, that for me, PTSD, especially postpartum, was a physical condition, my whole life changed. And I'm really thankful for it. And I mean, I'll scream this from the mountaintops, because like, it's not that people aren't trying to do good. They are. It's just that there's newer things out there, like SGBs, which are perfectly fine for breastfeeding mothers postpartum.
And that's the Stango. Say what that is again.
Stellate ganglion block. I know it's a lot.
Right.
But it's a like lidocaine, and sometimes they'll put like steroids or some other medications into the stellate ganglion nerve on the side of your neck. It feeds into your amygdala, and they use it to basically shut off your fight or flight response for 24 hours.
Wow.
So it gives you time to like literally don't have PTSD for 24 straight hours.
Wow.
And then after that, like it changes, and it's not as effective as you go along, but it's because like you're learning how to cope with your nervous system by calming it down and getting your head above water. And it can be used for breastfeeding patients. But the VA did not include any breastfeeding mothers with PTSD in their research that they're doing that prove that it works 75 to 90% of the time for patients with PTSD. I was the first woman that got it that was breastfeeding. They never even thought about me. Someone like me was never even a thought in their research.
Did the VA pay for it when you did?
The first time, yes, because I got it done through the research department. But then we moved because I got it done, and I was like, I need to go home to my mom. I know it's silly, but moms are important. I had to go back home to my mom so I could take the time to focus on my health, because like I realized so much stuff had been neglected over the years, especially with the wear and tear in the military and my spine. I had nerve problems down my neck. And then when I got to Kansas, where my mom was at, they didn't cover it. I paid for 2 out-of-pocket injections at 2 different clinics. And then after 8 months, I was able to get an actual executive approval through the VA. But I mean, I had to sound like a crazy person in tons of videos to get people to listen to me and to get my VA's PR people to call me back.
And that's the crazy
But
thing.
I finally did get it. Yeah. And now I just moved back to Washington State, and it took me my first phone call with my provider, and she gave me my pain care referral to get stellate ganglion blocks. So now I have them as a part of my stuff indefinitely. And the VA is playing. Yeah. But it's an option.
That was a hell of a fight for you too, wasn't it, though?
It was. I mean, my first injection,
dressed it up with you did videos, but
yeah. I did. I got my first injection July 16th, 2019. And I didn't get a secondary approval for a referral to a community care provider until the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow.
And when I got the referral, it wasn't like I could just use it. I had to go through appointments with doctors to give me a fibromyalgia diagnosis first, and then once I had that, they were and their medications didn't work on me, which were anti-opiates, when I don't even take opiates, but they work on your nervous system. So I had to go through a bunch of medication and like check the boxes and say, oh yep, not working, not working. And then finally they gave me my injections. But now I did it just really quick. It just
Wow.
it takes a fight.
It is a fight, and I had something different but kind of similar in a way. Um, I had to fight after I had my son. I got really sick. Um, and a lot of people have heard of hypothyroidism, but they don't know how sick it can make you. Um, so after I had my son, I was doing the whole military thing. I bought a bicycle with a kid carrier in the back, and working out and just getting myself back to right. And I was doing really good. And all of a sudden, I just got so sick. Um, I gained 11 pounds in a week and a half. My hair was falling out in handfuls, um, like multiple times a day. I was living with another woman, and she's like, "You need to put your hair in a bag and go show the doctor how much is falling out of your head." And they always kind of blew me off because I have really long hair, and they were like, "Oh, it's normal. That just looks like a lot." Um, but when I went in and actually had my thyroid tested, um, and I went straight in and I was like, I need you to test my thyroid. And they were like, why? And I said, well, it's either depression or my thyroid. And, I'm sleeping nonstop. My hair is falling out and I've gained 11 pounds in a week and a half. And y'all are tracking me for postpartum. So you watch that weight gain. Um, and they tested me, and normal range at the time was zero point 0.5 to 5.0 for your thyroid hormone, and I was at 88.68. So I was um I was extremely sick, and people joke and say your hormones are still moving around after pregnancy, and you're already forgetful, or you're already tired because you're a new mom. But people really didn't understand just how sick I was. And my husband was still deployed. I was active duty with an infant. So um, we were both, thankfully he was in a growth spurt at the time, and we were both sleeping nonstop after that. And I can just remember I was hypothyroid for about 2 months before they made me hyperthyroid for a little time. But unfortunately, I didn't have the weight loss aspect that comes with hyperthyroid. Then they leveled me out, and it was just kind of a shit show going through everything with the military doctors. I finished up my 6 months postpartum, and um, the person over at the clinic was like, "Oh, well, you should have." The regular TMC was like, "Oh, well, you should have lost your pregnancy weight because you were hypothyroid, but then we made you hyperthyroid, as if, you know, apparently you're just grandfathered into every general condition when you have certain medical issues." And I was just like, are you guys fucking kidding me? I was so sick.
Mm.
um, and then after my daughter, they were watching out for it. They were looking for me to go hypothyroid again, because I actually, it was temporary after my son, but it was permanent after my daughter. And even watching out for it, I still got to 55 point something on my TSH um, before I went in and had my blood work done. And just I I remember how bad it was, because my husband didn't see me after my son. He had to redeploy. And I just remember um, gauging how bad my days were mentally off of, he would ask me right about noon each day, like, did you remember to take your medication, because it takes a month to get in your system. And like that would kind of be my sign, like he's asking me if there's an end to the crazy right now. And um I just remember going through that. But I mean, it was the highs and the lows, and you get thrown right back into regular doctors who really are not even regular doctors. PAs, or not even that. that have no specialty in dealing with your thyroid or what you've gone through medically, and just kind of make a snap judgment like, oh no, you need to be right back to Army Right. And it's like, man, I've been doing the Army Right job, but my body is a wreck right now. And so, like, I had a lot of back pain while I was pregnant, and the best they can figure, the best medical description I was ever given was um, that while I was pregnant, I likely had scoliosis that developed an S curve in my back, and a lot of nerve issues. And I just remember telling them how much my back hurt, and they just, they kind of blow you off like, well, you're pregnant, of course your back hurts.
Yep.
Um, but I just remember it being a fight every time. Like, I get that this is what's going through my body, but come on, I don't go to the doctor a whole lot. Like, something is wrong right now. And
Yeah, they just assume you're malingering and you're just like, oh, my back hurts. And it's like, no, I'm having nerve pain in my I know the difference between a muscle pain and a strained muscle and chronic nerve issues happening.
yeah,
We know.
but I mean, I feel like the whole process is just kind of a shit show, especially when you're dealing with a medical profession that, quite frankly, they mostly see men. So they're treating female conditions so much less often, especially at that rate. So it was nice to hear that your experience at the VA, that the care was actually good at the VA. I've just heard so many stories about
The only
practically.
reason my care was good at the VA was because they give you referrals to everything. They will not touch you at the VA. They give you any community care that you want to go to for your pregnancy. They send you there
Wow.
and you're good. Yep. In the military, I've had a pap smear on a fold out table after the person warmed up the speculum in a styrofoam cup of hot water. So when it comes to the military, female care is a little leaves very little to be desired.
That's like next level, I have to say.
That was my pap smear before my first deployment.
I've had some pretty crap experiences, and some that are more gory than I'm sure anybody wants to hear about, but I mean, damn.
Yeah.
And coming from the medical industry, like, you were a medic, so how does that sit with
I've
you
never
seeing it?
experienced I've never experienced anything that horrific. And well, I got my ass slapped at MEPS. That was probably one worse in a medical facility, but that pap smear was oh, and like in a back room somewhere because I was the only girl that they had in that mobbing area.
Super fun.
That because I didn't have like a pre pap smear that I had brought with me, so they're like, oh well, we're just gonna have to do it here without the facility to do it. So they're just gonna poke my vagina. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Thanks, come again. It really is mind blowing sometimes. I remember being one of my back flare ups. I had to take an ambulance to the hospital, and I remember um, they had the only wheelchairs. The urgent care was so booked up. The only wheelchairs they had available was a double wide wheelchair that they put me into, and when they tried to take me to the back, it wouldn't fit through the door, and they literally helped me transfer onto a rolling office chair, holding, like, the little plastic hard pieces above the wheel. So I have like one foot on top of the other perched, and I'm like trying so hard with my leg muscles to hold myself perfectly still because my back was just in excruciating pain. And they seriously put me over on that and took me to the back. And then the doctor yelled at me because I couldn't stand up. And he's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with you? You can't even stand up so I can do an exam on you. And I was like,
That's why I'm here.
that's literally. But I mean, you can't say anything because what are you going to say? Like, act a fool, and they're going to be like, oh, well,
Oh, I'm gonna tell your commander.
yeah. Or you can't get treatment here. I guess you're fine enough to go. I mean, there's literally nothing you can do at that point. But
Yeah.
and some of this is regardless of whether you're a woman in the military or just blessed enough to go to some of the treatment facilities there. But Um, it's just insane. It really is overall. And being pregnant in the military and the damage that it did to my body that I didn't know it was doing until after, um, sucks. That's why I was separated from the military, was medically from my back, and I had no idea all this stuff was going on until years after the military, and then it's like, oh well,
Yeah. So
ta-da.
everyone needs to document everything they possibly can, because you won't notice things until much later down the road. That's how my experience was too. I didn't realize that I was as bad off as I was until later.
Yeah, I had the exact same.
I think
I
that
had similar.
I think that we're getting, like, if that
Questioning
he had
time.
like a little cane hook to like pull us off the stage.
Does he?
I think yeah, he popped on for a minute. I saw his face. So I think we need to
We'll
wrap it
wrap
up.
it up.
We've talked for a long time. We can
Well,
talk.
I will say, women that have served in the military, women who have gone through motherhood and pregnancy, um, definitely if you did it while in service, it is not to be taken lightly at all. Be kind.
It's one of the most badass things that anyone can do.
It really
Sorry.
is. It really is. And, if you've seen a pregnant woman in the military, you know enough not to piss them off, because most of them are going to get their job done whether or not you're going to help them or not. um,
Yep.
but I mean, be kind to them. It's fun times, and I guess we'll wrap it up until next week.
Yeah. Thank you for being here with me. This is awesome. Thank
Absolutely.
you
Thank you.
everyone that has been watching.
Awesome. Do we end it? How do we end it?
I don't know. How do we do it?
Chappy.
We're like